Hello and welcome to Blank Slate. I'm Dan, and you can introduce yourself.
And I'm Diego.
And this is a show where every week I tell Diego to do something, and he tells me to do something. So not every week, every episode we're keeping that in. Every episode I
Yeah.
tell Diego to do something, and he'll tell me to do something. And this week I keep saying week. It's not the show like that. But this episode, Diego asked me to play Kingdom Hearts, and I told him to watch the anime Erased because I thought it'd be funny. Do we want to preface this at all?
Uh, so yeah, weirdly enough, I feel like, you know, we came up with these separate, like, I just kind of threw this one off the cuff and you had prepared yours. So, like, it was a situation where, like, there was no connecting thread between the two. But as I watched Erased, I realized there sort of was. Because I think these are both things that neither of us would have expected to ever actually get into because it just didn't seem like our thing. And then I think we both came out of our respective things going, "Yeah, that was fine." Like I.
I was talking about Erased real quick before we get into the actual like meaty chunks, but I only recommended you Erased because for the COACP podcast we have Star and Rusty, right? And they both fucking hate it. And I like this anime, not like a super ton, but I like it. And our friend Gundalf likes it. And it's very controversial. Like this happens to a lot of people. I found out is that they either hate it or they love it. And of course, I like it. But well, you want to start with Erased? Do you want to just go for that first?
Yeah, I'll start with Erased.
So, what did you think of
Sure.
Erased?
I I think the first 10 episodes are solid. Like I wouldn't say I love them, but they're solid. They're like a strong 7, maybe an 8 if like it landed somewhere. I think the last 2 episodes are complete fucking penis, bro. Like, what are they cooking on? Like, I don't know, dog.
A lot of people hate the ending like the most because of the. Well, we should get into what Erased is about because we talked about this. Give me a
Okay,
quick plot summary of Erased. I remember it, but for the
all right.
audience.
Yeah, for the audience, if you have not seen Erased or heard anything about it, Erased is about this guy. His name is Satoru. There we go. I almost forgot. This guy Satoru. He's 29. He's a failed manga artist, and he has this ability called revival, where if something like sometimes like something fucked will happen around him, and then like a time loop will happen, and he will be able to fix it. And this is a thing that he's apparently been dealing with for a while, and usually it'll pull him back like 10 seconds, and he just has to figure out something. Like the first scene we get of the show is him stopping a car from hitting a kid because the driver had died, and essentially at the end of the first episode of the show, he ends up getting pulled back to when he was in the 5th grade because there was a string of kidnappings and murders in his town at that time, and he has to solve he has to solve that case to prevent himself from getting framed for murder in the future, because that's related in ways I didn't convey, but don't worry about it. It's fine.
I mean, there's a lot of finer details, but Erased is for a show about a magical power. Erased is really not about that, like in any way, shape, or form.
No, he doesn't. That is the premise, but also they never explain what the power is. It just happens twice, and then there you go. He just that's just the thing he has, and seemingly a thing he's always had, but also a thing that he did that didn't happen the first time he went through these events. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Anyway, yeah. So most of the show is him in his 5th grade body, sort of going through events, trying to first piece together what's happened, and then trying to make sure that like the kids that are going to get kidnapped don't get kidnapped. Trying to bond with, because as we learned throughout the show, the people that are going to get kidnapped are people that were just sort of loners and sort of on their own in separate ways. So it's just like, get to know them, there's that to it. But, he is just sort of like trying to stop it from his future perspective.
Yeah,
That's the main thrust of the show. Yeah.
it is funny that he has this power and it's set up like he's going to use it a lot, and then like you said, he uses it twice, which is
Yeah.
he used it a couple times in the first episode to show it off, to be like, oh, this happens. But then when he does like the jump back to fifth grade thing, he uses it one more time after that, and that's it. And it's you could have just had a plot about the guy like running into a magical thing and going back to fifth grade, and it would have been the same show. I don't know why he needed the superpower.
Yeah, he just has that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's most of the show, he's trying to bond with this one girl because she was the first one to get kidnapped, and she's a very interesting character. I would say she is. I would say the character they're most delve into is this girl who Kaya is her name, and she is raised by a single mom who abuses her, and she's just sort of a loner who's like pretends everything's fine and just like stays away from everyone mostly. And and Satoru just kind of has to try and bond with her, get her into his friend group, and then figure out how to like keep her safe. And he fails this. The first he has a first, like Dan implied earlier, he has a first loop where he just like he stops it and then goes, "All right, we're fine now," and then it just happens 2 days later, and then from there he goes back to his present time and does more investigating and talks to one of the worst written characters ever, by the way. That fucking Irie sucks, dude. I gotta talk about this. No, I know you would. I know you would, because you're fucking Dan. Don't worry about it. Sucks. Okay. No, this character. Okay, so there's this character in the present time, Irie. She is she's a high school girl, and she is Sauter's co-worker at a fucking pizza place. And she okay, so literally everything this character does is in service of Satoru. Like generally, this character does nothing that is just like this is the thing that is hers. You're just like we need someone to be able to like help this guy all the time ever and be like nice and like a bit of a Mary Sue. And the only thing that we will give her that is distinctive and not just like helping him out for the plot is going to be the most penis backstory you've ever fucking heard. That is all we will give her.
I don't even remember the backstory all that well.
Her backstory for why she believes him and why she just like generally is the way she is one time she was at the supermarket with her dad, and as they left, the owner of the shop was like, "Hey, your dad, he has a fucking chocolate bar in his pocket. He's trying to steal that shit." And the dad just like vehemently refused to admit that he did that. And until his entire town hated him, and he had to divorce his wife and leave. And now she's like, "Oh, I should believe in people." That is her backstory. I don't know why.
That is funny.
Yeah,
I don't mind her too. Like I said, I like her. She's fun. She's not the most well written character. She's only in for 2 or 3 episodes, but like I like her. She's all right.
She's quirky.
Yeah. What do I like about Erase? Because it's been a long time, and when I first watched this, this is a thing I could recommend to like my family doesn't watch anime, but if I were to recommend them one, I'd probably recommend Erase because that seems like a thing like they would like. How many episodes was it again?
Recommend. It's 12.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very short, which is like positive for like recommending it. So this is a thing like if people ever ask me like what anime should I watch, I'd be like, oh, you like normal shows. Erase is a good one. It doesn't have a lot of convoluted bullshit like a lot of anime stuff I like does. So it's like that's a good recommendation.
It's a pretty normal show.
Yeah. The main character, it's funny. I don't remember any character traits about him. He's actually not that interesting as a main character.
He has some stuff. He's like he wants to be a hero. Is sort of like the main thrust of him as a character. Is he as a child was very much inspired by heroes and returning to his childhood at a time where he was very much just like a kid that just wanted to like be normal and not call much attention. He has to sort of like re-tap into that to like do cool shit. Like I think he has some interesting stuff going for him, but yeah, it's not like a whole lot.
I think obviously the main interesting character. And you've already said it before, but Kaya is a very interesting, like, unique character.
Yeah, she's really interesting. I think, yeah, she's probably the strongest character in that story. So I'm skipping around a lot because like the middle chunk of the show is just sort of like they're doing the thing. Like there's not much to like talk about. Like he's getting to know her. He's remembering events. He's figuring out like how to like put things together in a way that'll work out. He's getting to know his friends a little more. Like, there's stuff to talk about there, sure, but it's not really like, oh, these are the things I'm like I want to talk about these a whole lot. So I'm sort of skipping around a little bit, but the last two episodes are really funny, man.
We'll save those a little bit because there are things I do want to talk about, which is obviously a lot of the show is slice of life, which is, he's trying to make friends with these people so that they're not alone, so that they're not easy prey for a predator who is on the loose. And so it's a lot of getting to know the other characters and the other kids and stuff. And the scene I always come back to in my brain when I'm like, what made Erased like good in my mind? And it's the scene where they're walking through the snowy forest up the hill. I think that's how that was. And then
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good scene.
Neat, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about it that got me like emotionally invested, and I maybe it was just very beautiful because it is a very beautiful, like. Very
No, yeah,
beautifully
it
animated.
is. No, yeah, it is a very beautiful scene. That is, I think the visuals are a big plus for the show for sure. I think it's. Yeah. I wasn't really like super fucking with the designs at first, but like the direction is very strong throughout. I would say.
Also, I don't know if you watched it. Well, I'm sure you did because anime music quiz is funny, but like the opening and endings are really good for Race as well.
The opening's great. Yeah, I skip the ending. Truly, I'm an ending skipper. Bro. I'm sorry, I don't do that. I listen in my brain. The 3 episodes of anime have to take up exactly 1 hour of my time, and that only happens if I skip the ending. That's how it works.
There's not a lot to talk about with the race because it is only 12 episodes. So, other than the funny time loop, the main characters, people think Satoru's mom is really hot. I don't see it personally, but
She's got weird looks.
Her lip thing is weird.
Yeah.
We can talk about the last episodes because I have a lot to say about Kingdom Hearts, but we'll talk about Erased a little bit more.
Okay, so before I lead into the last episodes, I did. This is like the one thing I brought up before we recorded this today, and about my experience, which I think is a lot of people's experience. I would assume, which is that who the killer is incredibly obvious.
I figured that shit out like frame 1. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Yeah, the first scene is which is in episode 3. I looked at it because I was like, I looked back at it because I still had the files. So yeah, fucking 8 minutes into episode 3, you know who the killer is basically, and he's been in one scene at this point. Apart from like the future stuff where you see him have obscured a little bit.
I don't even think they have a red herring. It's not even like a red herring.
That's what I was gonna say. That's the problem. Is they give you a guy that you from the 3rd episode you could be like, oh, this guy's somewhat sus, and then they never give you anything to make you like go, oh, it could be someone else. So it's just like you have that idea throughout. And it's like, and then it's true. And then it's like, oh yeah, fucking.
I like that they keep portraying him. It's the teacher for anybody who hasn't watched Race.
Yeah.
It's the teacher. It's the school teacher who teaches their class.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. He looks like Adachi in my brain, so I keep wanting to call him Adachi. That's not what
he does look like Adachi, and that was also a factor in me going, this fucking guy did it for sure, bro. That was like absolutely a part of it.
My favorite is every time the teacher is on screen or talking to one of the kids like on their own, he's like the super nicest guy ever, and it's like, come on. He can't. This is so like obvious. He can't just keep doing this. Like the murder mystery is kind of shoved aside for the whole like friendship thing, but it is a part of it. Like he is actively looking for this guy still, and it's just barely. But it's like clearly him.
Yeah, like you could say it's not a big focus, but like who the killer is still a question the show is asking for 10 episodes.
Yeah,
so, like for it to be that obvious, it's like, well, I mean, yeah, it's that guy.
But we can talk about the last two because I think the funniest fumble of all time was I think they're at a hockey game and then the teacher's like, "Oh man, you guys are pretending like there's a killer around. That's cute." And he's like, "Hey, can I give you a ride home?" And the guy's like, "Of course."
That's not exact one. That's an episode 10 still, but yeah, that isn't exactly how it happens. So what happens is, fucking, there's the one girl that like they suspect is the next target, right? And she's at the hockey game, and she goes into the bathroom, and Satoru he follows her in. Well, he follows her into the hallway, and right there the teacher pops up, and he's like, "Oh, what? You're looking for this person?" And then he opens like the door right next to the bathroom, and it's like, "Oh, it looks like she's not here, huh? This is weird." And then the fucking truck of the other guy that is being suspected passes by, and he's like, and in the dumbest moment of all time, Satoru turns to the teacher who is doing the most sus shit of all time right now, and goes, can you help me follow that truck?"
Seems sillier than I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's fucking. Which also, like, I don't get why he does that, because fucking, it's literally the whole thing is it's the truck of the guy that originally was arrested for the murder before all the time stuff, and so he knows it's not him the whole time. And also, like the only sort of other suspect that's even been brought up is that guy's dad, because it says, "Oh, I think he never like gave any details because he thinks if he does, they'll realize it's his dad instead of him, and that's why he kept quiet about it." But like, also, that's not true, because early in an earlier episode, you specifically planted an alibi for both of them. This is a thing that happened. Why are you following this fucking truck when the teacher's being sus as shit? And also, earlier when you were hanging out with the teacher, you opened his glove compartment and there were fucking like tons of candy inside, and you were just like, "Oh, I used to smoke, haha." What the fuck? How did you not realize it? Are you stupid?
Like, they make him suspicious as hell, and there's not even like a real like red herring. There's never a moment where you're not like, "Hey, this guy is pretty like crazy," right?
Yeah. But yeah, he got him in his car, and he's like, "Fucking, you've been fucking up all my plans. You've been stopping all my targets. It's like you're one step ahead. It's like you're in my head. It's like everything I'm gonna do. What the fuck?" And he's like, he's gonna kill him. He like keeps him in his car and like weighs down the fucking. He weighs down the gas, so he'll like the car will drive into the fucking river, which. At first, it's not conveyed that this is what he's gonna do. He just pulls out a basketball, and Satoru's shocked, and I'm like, "What's this fucking basketball?" And then he puts it on the gas. I'm like, "Oh, okay." But first, I was confused what the fuck this basketball was about. Anyway, yeah, he gets him in there, and like right as he's fucking like falling in, he's like, "I know what's gonna be in your future." But then he falls in, and then it's revealed, I guess next episode, it's revealed that he goes down in this fucking car, and he ends up in a coma for 15 years. Uh, which they never explain how he got out or like what happened. They're just like, because like everyone, like, from what it's implied by everyone's dialogue in episode 11, everyone just knows he's in a coma, and they don't know why. They don't know what happened to him, which is like he was at the bottom of a lake, like trapped in a car, and it's never explained what the fuck happened afterwards. He's just in a coma.
I think, and this is like, I don't know what you mean by exactly like what happened to him, but I think that because there's a little bit in the future because it's a stupid plot twist. But the teacher was like, you said you knew it was happening in my future, and I became attached to you." So it's
Yeah,
like, so I think the teacher pulled him out and then like called the cops and ran away. But
they
like,
just never show or talk about it. Is my
yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Like if he had said anything about it, they have a whole ass confrontation later. He could have just said it anyway. Yeah, everyone just knows he's in a coma, and they don't know why, and they for some reason feel the need to have a lore explanation why his muscles still kind of work, by saying his mom has apparently been like keeping his fucking half dead body moving for 15 years, because because she's real dedicated. She's a great mom. This is a weird plot point. Anyway, fucking episode 11's crazy. So I'm going to talk about something. So for a lot of the show, they're setting up, they're showing, Satoru and Kaya, and they're just sort of like, oh, there's sort of a romance here, but like there's not, and it would be weird if there was, because he is in fact a 29-year-old in a 10-year-old's body, and he would literally be grooming her if this is the case. And so how they shove that aside is after he wakes up, she shows up and she's like, hey, I have a baby now. I'm married to your other friend, so we don't have to worry about this moral quandary. It went away.
I've met so many people who fucking hated it and like they should have got together, and I'm like, no.
No, yeah, that's stupid.
I've met a million people who are like, I can't believe he got cucked. I'm like, you don't want this. You don't.
Yeah, no. Absolutely, they should. If they ended up together, this would be like so much worse. Like, I just think the resolution they chose for that is goofy, but it's still better than just actually going, he ends up with the child he groomed with his time powers.
People get like, again, people get mad about that, like that ending a lot, about the character and them not getting together in the end. As everyone always explains to those people, it's like, wouldn't it be more fucked up if she waited 15 years for a guy who she didn't think was gonna wake up? Her life moved on. She got to live. That's kind of the point, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that is part of the point. It's fucking. He's gone. He was erased for those years.
Yeah,
they say this line,
and it's not like a super deep theme, but I do think that she got to live the life that he got to live first. Obviously, she didn't live his life, but like he got to be in a coma for 15 years, so she took over that position in his life, and now they're both awake.
Yeah, but and in a way, this is somewhat foreshadowed in the first episode, actually, because fucking, like I said, the first time we see him use his power, he saves the kid from getting run over, and he ends up like in the crash, and he ends up in the hospital, and he's explaining his power, and it's like, the best I can do is turn a bad result into a neutral result, but sometimes it just turns the bad onto me, and it's like, yeah, it's fucking, yeah.
Yeah, like there are cool thematic things like that in Erase, despite how silly the main villain is.
The main villain is very silly, which I also, it's very goofy that they're like, they connect like the cases together, but like when they're investigating, like going like, oh, this killer, his MO is framing other people for his crimes. It's like, yeah?
How do you prove that?
No, it's also just like they talk about completely unrelated things and going, oh, well, he tried to frame you for this, just like he tried to frame that guy 20 years ago. This means it's the same guy. And it's like, I guess, I suppose this is the only person that would ever frame someone for a crime. But anyway, they do the fucking, we're in the flash forward, and for a lot of it, he has lost his memories. He doesn't remember. He doesn't remember his other timeline life, or like the stuff he was doing with his powers. He just remembers like the before stuff from when he was just like a normal 10-year-old. And then when Tayo shows up, he remembers, but he as we learn later, he fakes that he doesn't remember at that point. And essentially, I don't remember if it's actually before or after that scene where he ends up meeting Yashiro again, and he's like, "Oh, I'm using a different name now, and it's not sus. Don't worry about it." And I'm hanging out with this kid. And
I think it is the first thing either right after his mom, or it is actually the first thing he sees when he wakes up is Yashiro again, and it's like, yeah. And then he goes to meet his friends.
I'm trying to remember how this actually goes to talk about it properly. Oh yeah, fucking. There's this other child. There's this child that like Satoru meets it in physical therapy, and it turns out Yashiro also knows her, and he goes in. She's getting surgery soon, so he goes in to visit her, and Yashiro's there, and he's like, oh, she's asleep now. Don't worry about it. And it's like, oh, okay. And he's like, oh, we should talk somewhere private. Want to go up to the roof together, and they go up to the roof, and then onto the roof, Satoru's like, "Hey, I remember everything, by the way. Fuck you." Uh, and they have this confrontation on the roof, where first he realizes he's recording the conversation, so he takes his phone. He's like, "Nah, fucking, you're trying to get me to confess to something, but like I haven't actually done any crimes these last 15 years. Fucking, because I've been obsessed with you the whole time because you said you knew my future. How did you know?" And he just keep. They don't actually like. He doesn't actually tell him why. He just tells him, "Oh, I know your future, dude. You're fucked. It's fucking over
I love
for
that
you."
he
And he
just
gets
says
mad.
that, like, I know your future, and then the guy has no proof. He doesn't say anything about his future. So he's just
Yeah, he provides no details. He just says he knows his future, and he gets really mad. And, and then he's like, "Oh no, it doesn't matter. It's over for you. I'm gonna push you off this roof. I snuck muscle relaxants into the girl's IV so she will die, and I'm gonna frame you for that too. And then just fake your suicide, and then there you go. It's perfect." And then fucking Satoru was like, "Nah, you can't fake my suicide. I'm gonna do it for real, bitch." And he fucking takes his fucking he fucking drifts off this fucking wheelchair and jumps off the fucking side of the building, and fucking he reaches Yashiro reaches for him. He's like, "No, I fucking need you. You fucking complete me, whatever." And he's like, "Nah, fuck you," and he falls off, and Yashiro is just like, it's fucking over. It sucks. And he contemplates jumping down himself as well. But he looks down and he sees the uh, Satoru's mom and his friends caught him in like a big fucking like those like parachute trampolines that the fucking like the firefighters use or whatever. And he's like fine. And then Yashiro's just like, fuck, he's just gonna tell him I tried to
he
kill
got
that
my
girl,
ass.
man. I kind of fumbled, and he just gives up. And then that's sort of it. Then they do a little flash forward later where it's like, "Oh, fucking, it's 7 years later now," and then this timeline, Satoru is a successful manga artist because this time he's true to his feelings this time because he solved the things in his childhood, so it's cool. And then he walks into the bridge where him and the girl that I think sucks used to hide from the cops when they thought he killed his mom. And he finds her there, and she's like, "Hey, I'm here." And now she's not a teenager, so it's not weird this time. And then the show ends.
Yeah, I think my favorite, we didn't talk about it at all, is the fucking the motive that the killer has, which is that he's a psychopath. He sees like strings on people's head. He's like, I gotta cut them, which means I have to kill them.
Yes, he. Whenever someone is like hanging by a thread, he can see it and he'll kill them. Essentially, is how it's shown. And it is a physical thing that he sees, and he like the last episode opens with a monologue of him. Is it the second to last? I think it's the last. He opens with a monologue of him explaining there's a thing, and he literally like is. It's later said like, "Oh, he's saying this to Satoru," but it is sort of just framed as him talking to the viewer, and he's like, "You're not going to believe me, but I see these threads, and they let me see," and it's just like, "Fucking yeah, like what? What are you talking about?" This is so yeah.
They kind of frame it like it's a power, like a superpower, like Satoru's, and it's like it's not. He's just crazy. He's just an insane
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah, he's just insane, and that's neat, I suppose. I think he kind of sucks.
He's not a great like antagonist. I
No.
think he's very funny because of his whole like a kid said he knew my future before I killed him, and then I'm like, he's like, oh man, I'm going to obsess over this kid forever. I'm gonna help him in the hospital and be like his dad. I saw you as a son.
Yeah, this did happen.
It's
So yeah,
insane.
Erased. I want to say, my opinion of the show honestly was slightly higher than it is before I started this conversation. I'm kind of realizing I'm a little lower on it than I thought it was like half an hour ago. Yeah, it's just kind of silly.
I mean, there's like I said, there's a lot of good things about Erased, and it's in the middle section of Erased. I think the start's good too, and then the ending is just silly.
I mean, I don't think any like the emotional beats like they're solid. I don't think any of them really hit for me, honestly. So like I think this would have peaked at like a strong 7 for me, and then it got goofy.
Yeah. So those
But
your
yeah,
final thoughts on Erased?
yeah. My final thoughts on Erased is I feel no vitriol towards it, and I think anyone who does is like probably a little strange because like it's like most of it's like fine, but I do think the ending stuff, or I would say the entire last 2 episodes, are just like, bro, what is this? So
Right.
yeah, could have been a solid show, but it isn't. I've heard that like a lot of that sort of final scenario is like anime original and like the manga is supposedly different. But every time people say that, I don't trust them that the manga's better. They just because like anytime people say that, they know like fewer people will have read the manga, so they can just lie about how good the different stuff is. So
I didn't even know it was based off a manga. That's crazy. I would figure like a novel or something.
no, it's a manga. Yeah.
Do I have to explain Kingdom Hearts? Like people know what Kingdom Hearts is to a degree, but I feel like I shouldn't. Anyways, right?
Yeah, sure. Blinking Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts is a series where people talk really funny and say weird things all the time. And it's designed and it's designed by people who have their first intro to game design. No, but for real, Kingdom Hearts is it takes place. It's famously a Disney and Final Fantasy crossover game, quote unquote, that gets thrown out. But let's not worry about that just yet.
Yeah.
It's about this kid named Sora and his two friends Riku and Kairi, and they live on an island together.
They live in Destiny Island.
They live on Destiny Islands, yes. When the game started, I thought
my job in Dan's explanation of the Kingdom Hearts is to remember every proper noun in Kingdom Hearts.
I remember Destiny Island. Destiny Island's probably my favorite part of the main game, of the main story. Yeah, it's about Riku, Kairi, and Sora, and they want to build a boat so they can leave their island and see other worlds. When this game started, I thought this was like a Lord of the Flies situation where it's all kids on an island, and I thought this would be explained later. But no, they have families and stuff. You just don't see them.
Yeah, this is like an island that they go to play with, and there's like more civilization just like off screen.
Yeah. So they're building a boat so that they can escape. Actually, I should say how the game starts because the game does start on Destiny Island, but you have to do a. Let me pull up my notes real quick. You have to do a playable like create your character thing, which is really funny. Because you start off and you do this insane cutscene where you just like fall through a lake twice, and then you wake up in a room and it's like select your stats, and it's you pick the sword, the shield, or the magic staff, and it's like select what you're strong in, and you pick those. And if you've played a video game before, you would think this would affect your stats, and it does, but it also affects other things, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And then you have to pick one item to throw away. And I did look this up because I was like, because the first item you pick affects all the funny stuff. But what does the second item do? And this one actually just affects your stats. Yeah. So I picked the sword and I threw away the magic staff because I was not expecting to use magic as much as I actually did in that game.
I feel like when you did that, you assumed it was like a build thing. They're not really builds. It just sort of slightly affects how you're going to go about it. You still essentially have the same build as everyone else, which is pretty magic heavy.
So you start out on Destiny Island and you're building your ship, and like the first two hours of the game are spent just getting supplies for your ship and fighting with your friends on the island. And I think this is. I said I wasn't going to talk about the story much to Diego before we started, but I am going to say now I think this is one of the stories that's strongest to me because I really do feel the bond between Riku, Sora, and Kairi here. Like
that's fair.
Riku does have a bad case of evil voice, but like I still believe their friendship.
Yeah, he does do that.
And they of course have the nice scene at the docks, and I don't remember exactly what they're talking about, but it is like I was like, oh yeah. They're going to call back to this later, and I'm going to feel good about it. And they do, and it's a good scene. But then, I forgot to talk about the playable intro cutscene. So then you have to do, like, So then you have to talk to people in this playable intro cutscene, and they ask you personal questions. And I knew this was another gameplay choice. I looked this up. Stupid. This is stupid. So they ask you questions, and it's what do you want to do in life? What's important to you, or something else? And how you answer these questions depends on changes how fast you level up, which is insane.
It's really funny.
So there's three options. One where you level up really quick in the early game, but very slow in the late game. One where you level up very slow in the early game and very quick in the late game. And I could not imagine picking this on a first playthrough. That would be a nightmare. That would be terrible. And then one that's normal throughout, this should just have been the option. That should have been it.
I mean, it's fine.
I also looked this up as well because I was wondering, so is it the same amount of XP? No, it isn't. One of them is just clearly better if you're gonna go for a full max level.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. But yeah, it is. I think it's neat. That's it. That's all.
I'll talk about the gameplay when we get to Traverse Town because that's when it starts setting in for me. But Destiny Island is a very good gameplay start. You get to fight all the kids on Destiny Island, and they're basically little tutorials on how combat works. Because who is the guy with the ball?
Walker,
yeah. Walker throws the ball at you, and this is the first guy I fought, so this is a bad example, but I thought he wanted to play a game, so I fought him purely by hitting his ball back at him, and that's how I learned about parries. But apparently you're just supposed to beat the shit out of him, and I did that eventually. Yeah. Because I talked to the other kids, and I was like, oh, these are all just fights. But yeah, you do learn about that. Riku has the most bullshit fight of all time because there's just nothing you can do about half his attacks. It takes forever to learn how to get when you get it down, right? You learn it, you can beat him almost every time. But he does have some crazy iframes on his attacks that make it you can't hurt him very much at all. We're getting into the minutia here, but this is the start of the game. So you do all the stuff in Destiny Island, you build your ship, you help your friend, you have your nice conversations, and then it's the day before you leave the island. Also, this is another reason why I thought it was a Lord of the Flies situation. They just want to sail off on a makeshift raft that kids built into the sea. Now, we don't know. Obviously, there are worlds in Kingdom Hearts. This is a big thing. You can travel from world to world. These kids, I assume, know that, but I didn't know that. So I was like, they're just going to sail out to sea and die. What are they doing?
They don't know that. Essentially, they suspect it because Kairi showed up at some point, and we don't really know where she's from. She's from another world, and that's sort of they don't know how it works. They don't know how world travel works at all, or if it's possible or real. They're just kids.
Yeah, which it's very funny. So that night before the ship sails off, a storm approaches, and then Sora's in bed, and he's just sitting there, and his mom calls him down for dinner, which is mind-blowing to me. It was absolutely mind-blowing because that's not what I thought that would be. I did not think he had a mom at all. There's just they never say it up to that point.
Often forgotten.
But he's like, oh my god, the raft, and he goes down to the raft, and you have to fight the Heartless, which did appear in the character tutorial I talked about earlier, but I kind of forgot about it. But you have to fight a bunch of Heartless there, and then a big boss. You don't have to beat it, I've learned, but you fight a boss there, and it's a very boring, not very interesting boss. But you fight the Heartless on the beach of Destiny Islands again, and then you find Riku there, and he's like, Sora, I'm evil now, and then he disappears, and he's like, I don't know what the fuck that was. Sora's like, I don't know what the fuck that is about, but I gotta find Kairi, and then she's just gone. And then you
kind of skipped a critical thing that happens in that Riku situation.
Well, what happens?
That you get some sort of key blade as he disappears in the darkness. Kind of.
Is weird. That when you get the key blade? Yeah, it is when you get the key blade.
It's very important that's when that happens for lore reasons.
Yes, you get the key blade there. Because when you fight the Heartless on the beach with your wooden sword that you used to beat up your friends, it does not work on them like it did in the tutorial.
Does not do shit.
Yeah, so you fight the Heartless, and You travel, you try to find Kyrie, and I don't exactly remember because this is a long time ago I played this game. Did she get sucked away, or I just don't think you see her during that part of the game.
No, you walk into the secret place, which is this cave that y'all like did like fucking drawings on, and it has a mysterious door that'll be explained later. And she goes like, Sora, is it Kyrie? And then she sort of phases into him and disappears, is what happens in the cutscene.
Yeah. So you go to that secret door in the secret base where they made a bunch of cave drawings, and those are sweet. Like that, I think in another sweet cutscene in Destiny Island when they're drawing in the cave.
Yeah.
I forgot that's. Spoiler alert: the main villain is a guy named Ansem. That's when Ansem just jumps Sora in the cave and starts yapping, and he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, this world has been connected, tied to the darkness, etc., etc. Yeah. Shout out Billy Zane. Great
Billy Zane.
performance.
I don't think a lot of the local performances on this game were that great. Billy Zane fucking killed it.
Billy Zane
that guy
goes so
crazy
insane in that game. Yeah.
Like Ansem has by far the best voice acting, and I can't fault the young Haley Joel Osment. I can't fault Riku's voice actor because what was he cooking for most of that game?
It is especially noticeable because Riku turned there's the part where Riku fucking turns into Ansem, and then he's like, we switched from the worst voice acting in the game to the best voice acting in the game for coming out of the same character. And it's like, oh man. So, yeah. Listen, trust me, Riku's voice actor gets better and then worse. Don't worry about it.
You go through the door and Destiny Island disappears. And then we get to the game. This is where the game really starts. You're in Traverse Town, which is just like a normal like fantasy village. I mean, obviously there's stuff there. And you have the Keyblade, and you have a cutscene with Donald and Goofy, and King Mickey is missing. And they're like, we've got to go out to look for him. First stop, Traverse Town. So they go to Traverse Town.
That's not what you're doing, bro.
They get a letter. He gives them a letter, and they're like, go find the Keyblade wielder and help him. Yada, yada, yada.
Because King Mickey knows that the stars are going out. The worlds are ending.
And we get to Traverse Town, and this is where my gameplay problems begin. There are so many fucking enemies in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah,
they do not stop spawning, and it's not like they infinitely spawn. They stop spawning eventually. I think it just hits the memory cap, is what happens.
Traverse Town is funny because there's like spots that like if you walk into them, enemies will spawn, and sometimes your rewards from your previous fight will just like end up over there, and it's like, well, this is a loop now.
But here's another problem I realized around Traverse Town is that abilities in games that would be innate to your character just aren't in Kingdom Hearts. And this is what I want to talk about earlier with the stat system. So whatever weapon you pick at the start of the game chooses what abilities you get. Like in order. You get all the abilities eventually. But the order of the abilities you get. So what that means is that something as simple as seeing the enemy's health bar is an ability you have to unlock.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
It is a little insane, yeah.
And
I don't think that's like for an action game that's a little fucked up, but I don't think that's like a lot of. I feel like there's a few RPGs where like they'll tie it to an item, where they have it be a thing that you have to have or get. Honestly, I get it. I just think it's goofy to do that in an action game.
It's not the only ability I think is insane. First of all, dodge roll and blocking, both abilities, also insane. Being able to pick up money around you without having to walk into it, also insane.
Yeah, it's very much like there's a lot of things that feel like quality of life that they have you unlock. They're figuring shit out. It's the first game in the series. It happens.
But also, like I said before, this ties into whatever weapon you pick. So, like, if you pick the sword, like I did, you don't get the ability to pick up money around you until late game.
Yeah.
So you have to
until level like 36. Yeah.
You have to walk around extra picking up cash and stuff because it's really silly.
Yeah.
And these are definitely, and I'll get to why this extremely annoys me later. But we fight all the 1,000,001 Heartless in Travis Town, and eventually you meet Donald and Goofy. And I skipped a little bit there because you meet Yuffie and Leon Wall.
You meet the Final Fantasy gang. There they are.
Yeah, you meet the Final Fantasy gang, and then you meet Donald and Goofy, and Donald and Goofy are like, "You've got to help us. We've got to go to a different world and figure out what's going on." And this is when the Disney part of the game begins, because then you go to the Disney worlds, and I'm not going to go into each individual world because there's a lot of them. Well, there's actually not that many, but there's too many for me to do in like this one podcast episode. I will say most of them are not great. Not most of them. I want to say a good 60% of them are not great.
That is still most. I don't know. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think, like, let me think. I'll
go through them. Alice World sucks. Hercules World, it's okay. Deep Jungle sucks.
It's fine.
And then after that, Aladdin World, it's
good.
It's kind of on me. I don't like how that. It's a problem, and this is specific for. I want to talk about Deep Jungle specifically because this is when I was upset. But I think this world was also awful purely because of the boss. Like the level design was meh, but the boss is terrible because it expects you to have a spell you don't have, so you just have to like hope you hit the boss 90% of the time, and it's terrible. And this is potentially one of the first worlds. Also very funny. If there's ever a moment where you have to pick two worlds, and one of them that gives you a fake difficulty rating about how hard the worlds are, the lower one always sucks more. Just keep that in mind.
That's true.
Hercules World, great. It's like a 4 on the difficulty rating. Alice World is like a 2 on the difficulty rating, and it sucks. It's awful. But Deep Jungle, this is what I'm talking about experimental game design again. The game just does not tell you where to go. Like a lot of the time, and Deep Jungle's the worst culprit of this because there are several times where it's like, oh, we had a conversation and we didn't discuss what we're doing next. Figure it out. And there's one specific section where they like you unlock the whole map of Deep Jungle, and what you have to do is backtrack throughout the whole map again and fight every enemy in every area again, and then you can continue. And it doesn't tell you to do this.
Clarify, you are not like on one end of the map and it's just like, oh, walk to the other one. You're in the middle. You have to like go both ends.
It's awful, and a lot of people complain about the vine swinging, which is not that bad.
It's not that bad. It's fine.
Like a lot of the platforming stuff in Deep Jungle is actually not that bad. It's just figuring out what the fuck to do in Deep Jungle what's bad in it. Yeah, so Deep Jungle sucks. I'm not the craziest thing about Aladdin World. Monstro's okay.
Monster's fun.
What else? Halloween Town World, pretty good. Like that one.
Yeah. Great Worlds. Good game.
There's another one that I'm forgetting.
Neverland.
Little Mermaid World. No, that's the worst one.
We don't gotta talk. We don't gotta talk about that one.
We don't have to talk about it because it's a nightmare. Swim controls. This will make the game fantastic. You can't use half your abilities here? Good luck, buddy. The enemies are so fucking annoying and everything feels slow and bloated. And then you get the fucking speed swim ability at the very end. This would have been helpful earlier.
Yes, you get the speed swim ability, like, beyond the point where you have to do any traversal in the world, really.
And then you get the worst boss fight, one of the worst I've ever experienced. Which is funny because like Ansem is the same as this boss fight, but it's like way better. Not Ansem. Fucking I forget his name. Satan. Satan's the same as Ursula, but like Satan's better. Chernobog, yeah. So you fight Ursula, and you have to do 2 fights with Ursula actually, and both of them suck. But the first one's like, I thought this was bad. You do the second one, Ursula does so much damage. And she just gives its non-stop attacks. And you just have to pray that you hurt her in any way, shape, or form. You have to get lucky. Unless you want to, I mean, you can grind. But, like, I don't know why you'd want to. And it's a nightmare. Also, the story, like, on any of the worlds is not that great. But the story of Little Mermaid World especially is just bad. Like, really bad.
Yeah, that one's goofy. I think I
King Triton is just a
Kingdom Hearts
hater.
1 is the Kingdom Hearts game that I would say tries to give like most importance to the Disney stuff, and it ends up in a weird spot where you're just sort of focusing on nothing for like a lot of the middle of the game.
A lot of the
Which
story
is
in a
a
lot
little
of the worlds are like it's just a Disney movie, but in a condensed version.
yeah, that keeps up throughout.
Sometimes it's okay, other times it's a lot like, what am I doing here? Uh, I forgot something big. So, for the first three worlds, you can't fast travel to them. You have to travel there in a mini game called the Gummy Ship. And this is one of the worst. I want to say it's one of the worst experiences of my life, but that would mean I felt something because it is one of the most mind-numbing experiences of my life, actually. Because it is.
I talked I talked about this with Dan and another friend of mine that's also played this game. KH1, 2, and 3 have gummy ship stuff, and I'd say they progressively get better. Especially threes. I think threes is really solid, and especially it's made by the people that made Einhander, the team that made Einhander and Square Enix, which is an old PS1 shoot 'em up. Which again, I told this to my friends, and I said, which begs the question: you guys had a shoot 'em up team,
Sure doesn't
and
feel
you
like it.
didn't use them for the like they had a shoot 'em up team with Square Enix, and they just didn't use them for for 2K1 and 2. They just like held that shit.
And it's funny because the gummy ship stuff has so much customization, and throughout the world you'll see like a bunch of treasure chests or items you can pick up, and half the time it's gummy ship parts, and you're like, oh, this gummy ship shit's gonna be real hard later. No, you can get through the game with the basic gummy ship. I've seen people do it with less than the basic gummy ship. I watched the speed run of this game after I finished it. People just take off all of the ship except for the blaster. It's just you don't do anything. You don't need to do
Yeah,
anything. It's so easy. It's so mind-numbing. You can just stay in the middle of the screen half the time and hold the shoot button. There's
yeah,
no challenge to it. And
yeah,
so for the first three worlds, you have to use this to get in between worlds. So what happens is if you're like me, you want to go to Alice World, and then you're like, oh, next you can go to Deep Jungle, but I want to go back to Hercules World. So you have to do this. You have to go from Traverse Town to Alice World, and then go to Hercules World. You have to go to Alice World, Traverse Town to Hercules World. And then I was like, I want to go back to Traverse Town, so I go back to Traverse Town again. And then I went to Deep Jungle, which means from Traverse Town to Hercules World to Deep Jungle. And then once you beat Deep Jungle, you get the ability to fast travel. Only to worlds you've been before, though. Anytime you go to a new world, you have to do the dumbass gummy ship again. Every
yeah.
time.
Eventually, they like once you clear the first set of worlds, they let you do warps to places you've already been to. But yeah, they're goofy about it first.
It's a pain. I did not like it one bit. That's the gummy ship. But like in Traverse Town, I talked about it, but God, there's so many fucking enemies in this game all the time. Thankfully, you can skip through a lot of them, but there are times where it forces you, and it forces you in the funny way. Because the funny way is, it doesn't block off the door or anything. It makes you interact with an object to enter it, and you just can't interact with things when there's enemies in the room. So you just have to go fuck yourself until you clear out 90 waves, and then you can interact with like a switch or a lever or whatever you need to open the door.
Yeah,
That's a
if
pain.
you did a lot of things in the end game section, which is when like there's more enemies and they're tougher. Like a lot of the exploring in the game you did during that section, which made it rougher, I think.
You build a world that's meant to be explored, and then like it punishes you for it, like on the first go around. Um, which is what I do want to talk about, because in my opinion, was harsher on this game, and I don't. I'll talk about the ending in a minute. My opinion was harsher on this game, but I did spend a lot of time doing the post game content, and that's a lot of fun. Actually, this is my favorite
Yeah,
part of the game. There's a lot of the post game
I love the
stuff,
first
which
game.
is grinding
Awesome.
grinding the bosses and getting all the materials and stuff like that. That's very fun, actually, when I don't have to deal with the annoyances of the gummy ship or not being strong enough to face enemies or having all of my abilities. And actually, now that I remember it, because I said I was going to bring this up later, when you get to Monstro, you get the high jump ability. And it's like, oh man, I gotta waste another ability slot for this? No. No, 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 no. See, you get what's called shared abilities. You go through the fourth menu, and at the very bottom there you go through the abilities menu, and there's Sora, there's Donald, there's Goofy, and then there's a shared menu now. And you click on it, and you can click high jump, and it doesn't cost any ability points, and it's always equipped. And this is where a lot of these abilities should have been. If you were gonna make them optional, you should have had scan there. You should have had dodge roll there. You should have had block there.
Dan, that's a very good point. It's very funny to have someone talk about like the first game of a series because it feels like I'm from the future, and I know because like I was talking about this where it's like a lot of the problems in KH1 are funny because different games have come up with like 5 different solutions to them, which makes you go, "Oh, there's no reason this should have been a problem," because like there's so many ways to not run into that. But your solution's funny because no game ever does that. They still put most of that shit in the main abilities. They just give them to you like at the start of the game, like a fucking sensible game would.
It's still weird that it's an ability slot. That should have just been a shared ability. They should have just those are quality of life skills. Like, I get restricting things for gameplay. Restricting this many just seems like I hate when I have to like, oh, this person came up with this idea, but I keep wanting to be like, Nomura is he's made games before. I hate when you give sole credit of a game to a single person because it sounds like you're talking directly to them as if there's only one person working on it. But that's not what I'm here for. But Nomura's made games before, so it just feels like. And I'm going to hate using this word because we used it before. It feels like they took, I was going to say deconstruction, but it's not what it is. It took all the parts of the game and they scratched it down to the bare essentials. And I'm like, what can we make as like as bare as possible and then add on to the pieces of this? And I get what they're going for. You want to make it unique, but it just feels like you're missing a lot, especially when those abilities are in the game. It's not like a game that's dated because they just haven't figured out that like idea yet. It's there. You just didn't do it.
Yeah. A lot of the early games just feel like really bare bones because you don't have any of your traversal stuff or your combat stuff, so it's just like, oh.
That's what made the like post game stuff very fun because I have all of my abilities, and it's like, oh, this feels like how the game was supposed to be played in the first place, as opposed to the start of the game, which feels like I can't do anything for the most part.
Yeah, you don't even got good air combos yet. It's like fucked up.
And I think. Like, Devil May Cry 3 is one of my favorite games of all times, and I think that game is always good because the base combat of that game would feel really good without any upgrades, but as you add more to it, the base combat feels better. The combat feels better. So I think what your bare necessities should be is what makes the game feel good, and then the other abilities should add on to that.
Yeah, KH1 definitely is very bizarre about when you get. I think honestly, you haven't even touched on this one. Which this one I think is the weirdest one of these, which is making you unlock each of your magic things one by one. Like, there's no basic magic set in the game. Your basic magic set is one fireball.
Yeah, that one makes a little sense to me because I think you should have started out with fireball at least because it does take a little bit to get it. Because the game gives you, I assumed when if I picked the magic class, you would have gotten one, but that's not true either. You still don't get magic for a while. Magic is progression locked.
Yeah.
The only thing I would have preferred, and this was very funny because you forgot about this too, is that Donald has all the magic, not maybe all the magic, but a good magic kit at the start. Because there was a lot of times like, what is Donald doing here? Until they got Cure, and I'm like, oh, there's my goat. First of all, Donald's the goat. I just want to say this motherfucker is shielding me and healing me in every fight.
Yeah, I made sure to tell you this when you were playing, but like, enjoy how strong Donald and Goofy are in this game because they will never be that strong again.
I'm sure Goofy was also insane, but it was less noticeable because he wasn't like supporting me. So he probably took out like a million guys. I just couldn't see because I was focusing on my own shit,
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I mean, I definitely think like. Starting the game with like, oh, you have a basic set. You got fire, ice. You got fire, ice, thunder. Maybe cure. I think makes a lot more sense, and that is what they do in every other game. So it was just like, yeah, that's sensible. Have things that have these very clearly context like these skills that clearly are better for specific contexts from the start. So you're not just like, oh, a different context showed up, I'm fucked. Like in the fucking Alice boss fight.
Yeah, you need thunder in that fight. And the game lies to you. It says that
Basically.
world's easier than the Hercules world where you get thunder. It's not, and it's harder.
Yeah.
It's more annoying.
A little bit, yeah. Anyway, Hollow Bastion.
Hollow Bastion is it's not a Disney world, it's the final world. It's the second and last world of the game, but it's the last normal feeling world of the game. And here, a lot of the level design is a lot more interesting and fun. And a lot of my problem with Hollow Bastion is, again, enemies, but it's not just respawning enemies. Is that they put so many flying enemies, and when you attack flying enemies, the response is, "Okay, I'm gonna go jump over a ledge so you can't hit me anymore. Fuck you. I'm just gonna sit here," which is annoying. It would be less annoying if when I fell. I think it would actually be less annoying if I fell off a cliff, I died. But that's not what happens. If you fall off a cliff, you get sent to a different part of the map. And that could be forever ago.
Yeah, you are sort of going up a tower, so yeah. And it's not even just like, oh, you fell off and you just have to walk back. It's like, hey, you fell off and also all the enemies respawn, so like, have fun.
You gotta start over. Yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise, I think Hollow Bastion's a really fucking well
Hollow
designed
Bastion's a
world.
really good world. Yeah. Especially if you're just going straight through it. Because I tried finding all the secrets in Hollow Bastion like the first time, and that was a nightmare. But like when I was just like, oh, we're just gonna go through the story bits and then I'll come back when I have all my abilities. It was good. I had a lot of fun in that world. And that also has some of the best boss fights. Because Maleficent's really good. Riku Ansem's really good. I think that's probably my favorite boss fight in the game is Riku Ansem.
That's right. Yeah, that one's really good.
Yeah. Also, a lot of the boss fights in Kingdom Hearts, I kind of zoned out for a lot of them. Like, I didn't really have to think about what their attacks were or what they were doing. It was just shield up, bash, and then until I can't anymore, and then figure out what's going on next. Riku Ansem was definitely one I had to think about, like in terms of where I'm standing.
Most of the bosses in Kingdom Hearts 1 are just like, here's a big guy, jump so you can hit it. And
Yeah,
that's kind of it. You don't really got to worry about what it's doing most of the time.
I didn't. Again, I really talked about the plot, and I'm going to go over it. I'm not going to tell you what happened in the plot because it's Kingdom Hearts and it's complicated as it is, but like it's actually not that complicated, but it's more complicated than I'm willing to get into. I do want to say I don't think this is a story for me.
Nah, come on, man. It's cool.
I don't hate it. Actually, I think I would like it if I was a bit younger.
Look at this guy, so fucking grown up. Look at this fucking guy. Fucking shaking my head at you, dude.
I couldn't really get into it, and then a lot of the story is just again the Disney worlds, and they try to build the bond between Donald, Goofy, and Sora, and they have the scene in Deep Jungle, but that's about it. They don't really even talk to each other for most of the game story.
This is true, but they're friends. They're journeying with you. They're by your side.
They are by my side. There's a good number of fights in that game you have to do solo.
Yeah, this is true. Your friends are your power, Dan. They make your heart strong.
Actually, it's very funny because they get that scene at the end of Hercules fight where it's like, my friends are what makes me a hero, and then you can do all the fights without them.
Yeah, but they make your heart stronger, and so yeah.
Yeah, the story it's a little strange because Kingdom Hearts is a big series. A lot of people play it, and a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, this game's got like an incredible story." And I'm sure Kingdom Hearts 1. I'm gonna get overall real quick, but I'm not. This is not the end of my bit. I'm gonna get overall real quick. Kingdom Hearts 1 is a fine game. I think it's good. I'm a little surprised people go as crazy over the series as they did if this is the first one. But like, if things do only get better from here, then I am excited about what's in future games. Because this was fine.
They only get better.
Yeah.
But they do most. I think story-wise, yes. The KH1's probably like on the weaker side for sure.
Yeah.
I just think there's just not a lot to Kingdom Hearts 1 story. Like the rest of the series I think does a way better job at having the story be around throughout the game, not just like hey, we have the Destiny Island stuff, and then hey, at the end we're gonna throw the final boss at you and like give you lore notes on what his plan is.
Ansem, we don't get a lot of what is. I mean, there's the Ansem reports, and I read some of them, but I didn't read all of them. But we don't get a lot of what his motivation actually is. We know what he wants to do.
The Ansem reports. Kill him.
Yeah. Like the game tells you what he wants to do, which is open up Kingdom Hearts and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of the Ansem boss fight, also pretty good. A bit long.
Got a lot of phases to it.
Yeah. I think that's so like again, the story was okay. Gameplay, the actual way the game feels, especially in the end, is really good. A lot of my problem is just enemy placement. Like it's just it's so many enemies, and then they're placed weirdly, and then they block you from doing shit that you should just be able to do. And then it's kind of mindless sometimes, especially against like little dudes. But like I said, the post game did make up a lot for this game for me, which is like the secret bosses are a lot of fun. Kurt Caesar is really fun. I actually said his name right.
Good job.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Kurt Cobain or something, but I actually said his name right.
Yeah, shout out Kurt Caesar.
Kurt Caesar is a fun fight. Hades is the fun fight. The tournament stuff's my favorite stuff in the game.
Yeah, love the tournament.
Ice Titan and Reaper are kind of lame. Not gonna lie. Rock Titan was just a bitch. Not like he was a tough fight. Like I kind of beat his ass, like no problem. Like he owed me lunch money at the end of that.
Yeah, you just kind of went on. It's like, yeah.
Sephiroth is easily the best designed fight in that game.
Yeah, love that fight.
Yeah. I've not done the Hollow Bastion secret boss yet. I'm saving that for after Sephiroth. I've heard it's not as good, but it is harder.
Yeah. I'm not like a huge fan of it. I think that he does a lot of cool things. Like you can look at him and be like, this guy's cool. But a lot of doing the fight is like, I'm not really like having a whole lot of fun.
Oh, I forgot about this, and it just reminded me. I played on the Epic Games Store version, which yuck, I had to play on Epic Games. But I think I only had one bug the entire time, which was during Anti-Sora on Neverland. Which Neverland is a good world. I just want to say that I didn't mention that earlier. That one's a good world. But there's the boss fight Anti-Sora, and he has a gimmick where he can like shrink himself into the floor, and if you use the gravity magic during that, your camera just goes to the bottom of the map, and you can't control anything, and you just get soft locked. And I hadn't saved in a while, so I had to do like 2 hours.
Did it not save in like a world and a half?
Yeah.
So yeah, I got it.
Kingdom Hearts. The only thing I want to say about the ending is it wasn't as conclusive as I hoped. But like, I guess that's what the future games are for. I don't know if I'll play anymore.
I think it's always complicated when people beat Kingdom Hearts 1 because I think Kingdom Hearts 2 is one of the best action games ever made and everyone should play it, but I cannot in good faith tell everyone to play Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, which is the next one in the series.
And I would play it in release order, so I would have to play Chain of Memories.
Yeah, you should know. Like I would. It's a situation where it's like I would understand why someone wouldn't want to play Chain of Memories because that game's goofy. But also, like I would, if someone was like, "Oh, I skipped it," I would also be like, "Dude, what the fuck?" So it's just like I end up in a weird situation where like I'd recommend Kingdom Hearts to a lot of people, but I don't really like push really hard on it because like there's a lot of things that I would be forcing them through that it's like can't like super bash for that one. Well, I don't know. I really like the story of Chain of Memories. I think the story is really solid.
So overall, Kingdom Hearts 1, it's a fine game. Whoever's listening, even if it's just the I think you'd probably like it more than I would. But I think it's fine. It's a good game. The best stuff's near the end. The best stuff, actually it's an inverse. The best stuff gameplay wise is near the end. The best stuff story wise is near the start.
That's funny. But also it makes sense. Oh no, I like the story stuff in Hall. I think All of Bastion's really strong story wise. Like when you do the Kyrie stuff.
Actually, yeah, the Kyrie stuff. The Hollow Bastion stuff's really good. And Billy Zane also kills the voice acting.
He's so good. Before, they replace him immediately.
I don't. Yeah. I know he's not like the main antagonist of the series, or like. I know a little bit about the future of Kingdom Hearts, and I know like Xehanort's the main villain, and I know he has a bunch of funny identity things. So I assume he's just
Yeah,
another form of Xehanort. Um,
yeah. No, I'm saying also like when Ansem does like show up in other games, and they just replace the voice actor. They could not get Billy Zane back.
that's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
they kept hailing Joe Osment. The motherfucker does not even sound the same.
I mean, I just assumed they couldn't. I just assumed they couldn't get Billy Zane back. He was just like, nah, fuck you, because like they do a pretty good job of like keeping people. I don't know.
Yeah, but didn't they change Kyrie's recently?
It's weird. I sort of don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. I think I talked about everything I want to talk about Kingdom Hearts.
There was a one voice actress who voiced Kyrie and one voice actress who voiced a different character, and then like by occasion they were like, no, just have the other actors voice both of them, which is
Hmm.
a little weird, but it happened.
Oh yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about with Kingdom Hearts. Unless I'm missing anything. Do you have anything you want to talk about Kingdom Hearts? I know I didn't really get into the story. A lot of that's fallen out of my brain at this point because it was a while ago. And it's not it's there's not much to like talk about in it.
I think there's a pretty good talk on it.
Yeah, I mean I know I yelled and screamed, but that's mostly for comedic effect. The game was fine.
Yeah, it's a good game. Love that game.
All right, so we want to get into what we're doing next time.
Yeah, you go first.
So it's one of my favorite movies ever, and I say that a lot about a lot of things, but this is something I actually do hold dear to my heart, and it's Fistful of Dollars. Clint Eastwood obviously
You
stars in
asked
it.
me if I'd seen this recently.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I keep forgetting to mention it to you. There's going to be a lot of times I feel where I'm just going to ask you, "Have you seen this?" And it doesn't mean it's going to be that week's episode, but it does mean that I'm considering it at some point because I
Right.
don't have a gauge of what you have and haven't seen.
That's fair. Anyway, I
Yeah.
came up with what I'm going to tell you to watch 3 minutes before we started. And, so, this is a show that's very near and dear to my heart. But also, I have a hard time recommending it to people because it has somewhat of a reputation. Also, this is a show from before they made television last like 2 seconds a season, so I'm only making you watch the first season. Dan, go watch House MD, the first season, I guess.
Oh, House? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go watch House. I love House. House is a really great show that a lot of people have heard things about, and a lot of the bad things you've heard about House are true, but also it's awesome.
I'll tell you what I've heard about House before we end.
Oh yeah, sure, go ahead.
I've heard that House definitely the best character, and everyone else kind of sucks than House. And other than House, the show's kind of a normal medical drama.
I disagree on both counts, really. Yeah, it's very much not a normal medical drama because the whole thrust of the show is they're like a diagnostics department that seeks out like fucking weird ass illnesses. So yeah, not that, but yeah, that was that.
I guess we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Not next week.
Not next week.